Well, the last thing any of us want to think about and talk about now is another wave of coronavirus. But health experts warn that that could be coming.
And would not be surprised if that in the next few weeks, given the fact that we've begun to open up and we have an increase in the BA2 variant, that we'll be seeing an increase in cases. Hopefully, that's not associated with an increase in hospitalization and severe disease.
Now, that warning comes as cases in Western Europe are surging. The UK and the Netherlands seeing cases jump nearly 50% since last week. And in Germany, new cases hit a record 7-day high, more than 1,700. These numbers leading many to worry that it's only a matter of time before the same happens here in the U.S. Here to talk about all of this is CNN medical analyst Dr. Jonathan Reiner. Always great to have you on, Dr. Reiner. So you heard Dr. Fauci say that given what he's seeing in Europe and Asia, that we'll be seeing an increase in cases in the U.S. imminently. What should people be prepared for?
We should be prepared for another surge. So throughout this pandemic, we have followed the United Kingdom and Western Europe by about 3 weeks. So what happens there typically happens here. And as you've said, right now in the United Kingdom, over the last 2 weeks, they've seen an increase of about 60% in cases. In Germany, over the last 2 weeks, they've seen an increase in daily cases of about 26%. And what they're seeing is not a sort of resurgence of the original BA1 Omicron variant. What they're seeing is a second peak now of BA2, the more transmissible variant. And that is now slowly starting to rise in the United States. And I expect that we will see pretty definitive evidence of an increase in cases in the United States probably by the end of this month.
So one more, can you tell us about the BA2 variant? How serious is it? If it's more transmissible, that's one thing, but is it effective against the vaccines?
Right. So we know that, as you said, this variant is remarkably transmissible. BA1 was about the most transmissible virus that anyone has ever seen, and this is about 30% more transmissible than BA1. The good news is that it does not appear to evade vaccines more than BA1 and does not appear to result in more severe disease. But it's an issue that relates to the denominator. If more people are getting infected, more people are going to get sick, more people will be hospitalized, and more people will die. Still today, we have about 1,200 deaths per day in the United States. And in about a month, we'll reach that horrible milestone of 1 million Americans dead. So right now, if you've not been boosted, now is the time to get boosted.
Yeah, it's just an unbelievable figure just to hear that come out of your mouth, 1 million Americans dead in 2 years. You've been warning that mask mandates were lifted too soon. How does that factor into any of these new variants and a new rise in cases?
We've been in a lull, and no one's welcome the lull, more than me. But if you look at what's happened in Europe, we know that this pandemic is not yet going away. When you start to peel away mitigation efforts, it becomes sort of successively harder to reinstitute them when you need them. There's been a group that has basically branded themselves as the urgency of normal. They felt an urgency to return to normal. But we're at a time where 1,200 people are still dying every day. And I feel the urgency to keep people from dying. Yeah. And until Americans aren't dying in these massive numbers, we need to continue to do everything we can to prevent the really catastrophe that this virus has inflicted on this country. And we are going to need, in many places in this country, to reinstitute these efforts in the next few weeks. And how are Americans going to respond when CDC or local authorities say, you should put your masks back on? It's going to be hard to get people to do that.
I know, but
when you're running a race, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bianca.
I was just going to say, I hear what you're saying, but I guess the argument for lifting the mandates was that a good faith measure for Americans, so they would know that this wasn't just an endless mandate, right, in perpetuity, but one that would only be enforced when necessary. Don't we need that kind of flexibility when dealing with something that's likely to be an endemic virus?
The problem is we removed mask mandates at a time when there were about 75,000 cases of this virus per day in the United States. You know, the last time we ratcheted back mask mandates last June, there were about 7,000 cases per day. So we pulled some of our mitigation when the virus was still very active. Now, we've been fortunate that cases have continued to drop, fairly rapidly in this country, but there's a clear sign that this virus is coming back. One marker is to look at wastewater in the United States, and about a third of the wastewater sites now are starting to see an increase in viral activity, and that will predict this virus coming back. So we will need to reinstitute mitigation measures, and I'm not sure the month without masks has been worth it.
Well, the wastewater metric has really been an effective one. Dr. Jonathan Reiner, thank you so much.
My pleasure.